Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 2 on the 10th of June 2025 and welcome to the Environment Overview Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Elvis Duke. I am the Chair of Environment Overview Scrutiny Committee. To my left is Vice Chair Councillor Emma Baker and to my right is Democratic Service Officer Joshua Mann. We're not expecting the fire alarm to sound today. If the alarm does go off, please leave the building by the nearest exit, main staircase or back right staircase. The assembly point is on the green directly outside the front of SK House. If anybody present should require assistance in such circumstances, can you please make yourself known to a member of the council staff. Please can you ensure that all mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent for the duration of this meeting. Please be aware that this meeting is being recorded and being live streamed by Public Eye on the Council's website. Please can you ensure your microphones are turned off when others are speaking. So I would like to warmly welcome all councillors, officers and public who are joining us today for our meeting, either in the council chambers or online. We will begin to work through today's agenda. So, Josh, is there any public speakers for today, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We have one public speaker with us today. Just for the benefit of the public speaker in the room, you'll be given 3 minutes to ask your question, and the committee have 10 minutes for any follow-up questions. Thank you.
So, Anne, if you'd like to make your way to the public speaking box, please, we'd much appreciate it. Thank you.
Is that on? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so this question's about air pollution. People in Grantham are fed up with air pollution from traffic. Idling engines play a small but significant part in the problem. I've written to all schools to ask their parents to stop idling their engines outside people's homes whilst they wait for their children. If I see an idling car, I ask them politely if they would mind turning off their engine. Most people haven't even thought of the consequences, which could be an on-the-spot fine. Notices are now appearing in Grantham asking people to stop idling their engines. Could SKDC please play a small part in this by asking idling taxis to turn off their engines? And there's a note at the bottom of the question, which is air pollution is linked to 43,000 deaths a year in the UK, and the World Health Organisation recognise it as being the largest environmental threat to our health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe that, Aisha, you're able to answer the member of the public's question. So I'll pass over to you, Aisha.
Thank you very much. So I work in public protection where environmental health sits within. So we deal with air quality and we monitor air quality within our district and we produce an annual report. So from air quality in Grantham, traffic-related pollution in Grantham is below the air quality objective, so it's generally continuing to improve in terms of air quality. However, we don't want to get complacent in that, and we continually need to raise awareness of the need for improving air quality and making sure it's safe for the community. So we also agree that raising awareness on idling vehicles is a sensible and helpful way to help continue the trend of reducing or increasing air quality within our area. So we're happy to do this and raise awareness, and we'll be releasing some comms messages next week because on the 19th of June is Clean Air Day. So we've already have some comms that will be going out, and we will also add idling vehicles into that to raise awareness. Also, as another point, just for your general awareness, under the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Licensing Policy, it references idling vehicles, and there is penalty points that can be issued once warning and guidance hasn't been given. So we can take action where we find there are issues. Hope I've answered the points.
Thank you very much, Aisha. Now, do you have any follow-up question to the answer you've been given so far?
No, I mean, that sounds really great, but we have used some of the tubes to, the really good quality tubes that cost quite a bit to get analysed. And we have actually used those outside various schools. And you're right, they are below 40 micrograms per metre cubed or whatever it is. But they're only just below it. And the one outside KG was very, very nearly 40.
Please go ahead, Aisha.
There was a clean air initiative that was through Lincolnshire. We bid for some money collectively, and they did specific targeted work within schools, because we also recognise that as well, that we need to raise that awareness, and we monitor at certain points, and they're all set within the guidance, but equally they won't all be outside schools. So we also use nitrogen dioxide tubes, and we collect them on a monthly basis, and they get analysed, and then if you go onto South Kesteven District Council's website, and air quality, our report is published on there. So it's always, we're doing the next year, so we're currently doing this year's, which will be published after June, so you'll get last year's data. But I think it's a really important point that you raise. We're all responsible for air quality in our community, and I support your proposal.
Thank you very much, and just to make that aware, we're actually going to put that into September's meeting, if that's okay with everyone else. Yeah. Thank you very much for your question. Have a lovely day. No, that's okay. No problem. Thank you. Okay, we're now moving on to item 2. Any apologies or for absence, please, Josh?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillor Gloria Johnson, substituted by Councillor Mark Whittington, and from Councillor Nicky Mansfield, substituted by Councillor Matt Bailey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. Item 3. Any interest that members wish to disclose, they can also be disclosed during the meeting. No? Okay. Item number 4. Minutes from the meeting held on the 18th of March 2025. Is everybody happy with the accuracy of the minutes? If so, I'd need a proposer, a seconder, and then we'll go into the vote. So do we have a proposer? Councillor Martin? Second. And Councillor Baker for second.
I think we were the only two here, weren't we?
Okay, so... yeah, you were the only two, yeah? Yeah. Okay, so...
So just put it to the vote, yeah?
Just put it to the vote then, please. All those in favour? All those against? And those abstain? You wanting to speak there, Councillor Sawyer? Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's just a general matter on committees. I do wonder if members of the public realise that on most occasions when councillors abstain on approving the accuracy of minutes, it's simply because they didn't attend the meeting. It's not they have any doubts about the accuracy. And I just wonder if that's generally known.
Will you just put it...
Well, if it's not generally known, Councillor Sawyer, I think now in public domain it is definitely known now, as you've put it out there. But you are absolutely right that when councillors do abstain on minutes, it's not because they have any different thoughts. It's purely because they were not at that meeting. So I appreciate you bringing that to the meeting and letting the public know. Thanks very much. Okay, item number 5, updates from the previous meeting. The action sheet is on page 9 of the agenda. Any further updates, or happy to take the notes, the contents? So, are we happy to know that? Councillor Whittington.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the action sheet, there was one action was to chase LCC for an update regarding the cleaning of drainage systems within SKDC. I'm wondering if LCC have come back to us on that, and if they haven't, when we think they would. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rees-Baker, do you have an answer for Councillor Whittington on that matter?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not aware of any formal contact that comes back. I have seen the teams coming out and working their way down various streets, but I will chase that up and send a polite reminder down to Lincolnshire County Council, and it might be an excellent opportunity to contact their new portfolio lead for this area under the new administration. Thank you.
Councillor Whittington, are you happy with the answer?
Yes, that's thanks. I appreciate there's been obviously changes at the County Council following the elections. And I appreciate that Councillor Baker's going to contact the portfolio holder. Just one thing I would say, I think it's entirely retrograde step that the County Council have actually pulled the Floods Committee and merged it in with the Environment and Economic. I think that's a retrograde step. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour for noting it? Thank you. Item 6, announcements or updates on the Leader of the Council, Cabinet members of Head of Paid Services. Does anybody have any announcements? Councillor Rees-Baker.
Thank you very much, Chair. I shoehorned one of these announcements into the last Cabinet meeting, much to a combined amusement and annoyance. But I did want to raise a couple of really fantastic events that are coming down the pipeline this weekend as part of Great Big Green Week, which is the UK's biggest celebration of community action, if you'll forgive the pun, grassroots action, perhaps, to tackle climate change and protect nature. Now, the week is already in full flow and lasts longer than a week, from the 7th to the 15th of June. Communities across the country will unite to make these positive environmental changes, and from SKDC's perspective, we have organised engagement events for each of our market towns in line with other events already going on. We're sharing our work on sustainability, we are promoting biodiversity, we're offering advice on energy efficiency, active travel, well-being walks, and a number of our other green themes. And essentially this is an invite to all 6 people watching the live stream and everybody in this room and everybody else that you would want to talk to in all of your parishes everywhere to come and join us. These are really fantastic events. On Thursday in Jubilee Park, Deeping St James from 10 until 2, we have one event. Friday the 13th, I didn't pick the date, in Stamford from 8 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon in St Martin's Churchyard. And then there are 2 events at the opposite ends of the district on Saturday the 14th. That is at the Wellhead Park in Bourne, joining our Picnic in the Park event there from 11 until 4, and the Barrowby Eco Fair, which I am very well informed is an excellent event, and I will be trying to get down to, unfortunately not this year because I've got ballet followed immediately by duties at the Picnic in the Park in Bourne. The second point that I'd like to make everybody aware of is our biodiversity consultation. There is a section of our website that I think we should all, as a matter of course, have bookmarked, and that is the consultations section. It gives us plenty of notice, plenty of information about all the consultations that we have going on about policies, data review, and we are constantly asking for people's engagement. We want these consultations to reach the heady heights of the tree and woodland consultation up in the 3 figures, over 1,000. The success of the consultation relies on community engagement. The one I want to raise at the moment is our biodiversity one. SKDC has over the last 18 months set aside 6 areas of council-owned open space as trial sites to make space for nature. The success of these locations have encouraged us to seek out additional council-owned and managed sites, which could also incorporate nature-friendly features, and we want to gauge public opinion on improving biodiversity across those sites and others. So the consultation is currently live. It runs until the end of the month, the 30th of June, and please, please, please get as many people to respond to that. Also, whilst this has been sent out to all of the parish councils, I know that you are very active in your parishes. If you can give a nudge for a reminder to get a parish response as well. This is a key bit of engagement, letting parishes know where we are planning to do work to beautify and improve their areas. So any questions on that, please catch me at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Trotter.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Latterly, my learned friend, Councillor Baker, answered my question. As a rural councillor, I'm always banging the drum. Don't forget about the villagers. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Whittington.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chairman. I thank Councillor Baker for mentioning the Barrowby Eco Festival this year. Just to let Councillor Baker and everybody know that All Saints Church in Barrowby has become one of the first churches, not only in Lincolnshire, but in the entire diocese of Lincoln, which is a vast area, to be awarded the Gold Eco Church standard, which all of us associate. I'm on the parochial church council at All Saints in Barrowby. We're extremely excited about. It's been a lot of work, and I'm going to encourage all churches to go for that. It involves a lot of work, but I'm sure all of us at Barrowby will be willing to share our knowledge with any other church community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whittington. Going on to item 7, the Corporate Plan 2024 to 27 Key Performance Indicators Report, end year Q4 2024 and 25. I'm aware that Councillor Knowles doesn't seem to be in the chamber with us at the moment, so I think I've been advised by our Democratic Services I can actually hand this one over to Charles to go through the KPI. So Charles, it's over to you.
Thank you, Chair. In January 2024, the Council adopted the Corporate Plan 2024-27. The KPI metrics and targets were presented to and agreed by the committee in March 2024. This report outlines South Kesteven District Council's performance against the Corporate Plan key performance indicators for Q4 2024-25. Only actions within the remit of this committee are presented here. Performance against 12 actions are presented for Q4 2024-25. 11 actions are rated green overall. These are actions which are on or above target as planned. One action is rated NA, or not reported. This is an action for which work has not meaningfully commenced, which is the implementation of the collection of food waste, which will commence from the 31st of March 2026. I'll also provide a short point of information for the committee on the impact of local government reorganisation for the corporate plan and for reporting of the KPIs. So, the corporate plan is due to expire at the end of the 2027-28 financial year. Somewhat remarkably, this aligns precisely with the current government timeline for the implementation of LGR. The successor authority of SKDC will be vested and commence work on the 1st of April 2028, which means that these KPIs will be reported on right up until the moment of implementation of LGR. So there won't be another corporate plan, and we'll be working on these KPIs and actions, subject, of course, to how they may be refined according to the wishes of the committee over the next few years. So that's the update on the KPIs. A full report looking at the entirety of 24-25 went to Cabinet last week, which of course can be accessed in the public domain. And I believe we have a full house of officers with us who are responsible for these KPIs. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask and scrutinise. Thank you.
Okay, committee, is there anyone who wishes to ask a question on the matter of KPIs with Charles today? Councillor Whittington.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got one question, but first of all, some congratulations, because I noticed looking through, reading the details, for instance, on the twin stream recycling, our rejection rate, which in Q3 was 6.39%, has now dropped in Q4 to 0.61%. And then in our in the contamination rate, that's dropped from 30% to 4.73. I think both of those are tremendous achievements, and give great credit to everybody involved. So I think it's right and proper that we do acknowledge those and pay tribute to all the work that's been involved in reducing those. My question it relates to the mandatory weekly food waste collections that's coming in April 2026. And I know that we probably won't find out from the government until November 24, potentially what the level of unfunded costs for this is going to be, because certainly I think this potentially is quite a large financial risk to this authority. I'm just wondering if in advance of the of receiving estimates from the government, if we have been able to do some informal work, even if it's just estimates as to what potentially that liability and that financial risk could be, because certainly when I had the portfolio in the previous administration, this was a real red flag, and no doubt it's exercising Councillor Rees-Baker was the current portfolio holder. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to hand you over to Katie for the answer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the government have promised to fund the ongoing revenue costs of the food waste for the foreseeable. No end date on that, but unfortunately haven't released the figures on what they will give us yet. So in September, I think we'll be bringing a report around food waste, which will outline our estimation of costs over the next few years, capital, revenue, comms, or, all the project plan, all the key milestones, all of that stuff. And at that point, we will update you on what we know from government, on what that funding will look like and what we've got. But we won't know the size of the black hole. We do anticipate the funding from government won't cover all of the costs, but we won't know the level, the size of that hole until we get the update from government. And unfortunately, they haven't given us any timelines on that. So, but as soon as we get it, I'll obviously pass that information on.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Rees-Baker, then we'll go to Councillor Sawyer afterwards.
Thank you, Chair. I hope the government are listening. I hope that they are responsive to the numerous letters that have been sent from local authorities of all tiers across the country questioning the calculation methodology for how this revenue cost award is generated. We argued very strongly against the assumptions in the award for the capital costs, as was brought to this committee in February, where they assumed 9.3 vehicles. I'm not entirely sure how one generates 1/3 of an RCV, but it's also quite significantly below that of our own projections. We know our district best, and we knew we needed 12 vehicles. So unfortunately, the government do have form for not putting their money where their policy mouth is, and I want to work with them. There are lots of contingency planning meetings going on as we speak, but if anybody from the environment agencies within government are listening, help me, help you. Give us the money to run this job effectively, to make sure that our residents aren't disadvantaged, that we can provide everything that they need in order to make a huge environmental improvement, secure our energy for the future, and give people a service that they can be proud of, because if they don't put the money where the mouth is, that becomes a fool's errand.
Thank you, Councillor Rees-Baker. Councillor Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman. I think this question may relate to a point in Enviro 7 on page 15. Apologies if not. Simple one, I think. Are we making full use of the Woodland Trust Free Tree Scheme?
Serena, are you able to answer that one for us, please?
Thank you, Councillor Sawyer. We are in discussions with Woodland Trust regularly about a few different projects. We don't have any current plans to make use of their free trees scheme. I would say the main reason for that is the trees do tend to be really quite small and not necessarily suited to public open spaces where they could be knocked down by enthusiastic children and or dogs. So we do tend to use larger trees for our public schemes, but we do have some plans with them in the next couple of months, and I'm sure at the appropriate point we'll be able to share an update with the committee on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
get my head around this. So if, for instance, Environment 14, we've now adopted the fleet management strategy, what then happens to that as a KPI? Does that just come off? Can I just ask that for clarity, please? Or does it change in some way?
I believe this one could be Kate or Charles, but I'm going to go to Charles first.
Yes,
on
I'll comment first, then hand on to Kay if necessary. So to clarify on this one, the initial KPIs was for task and finish to develop the strategy. Once the strategy is now in place, the next sequence of work, of course, would be to develop the action plan, what we're actually going to do to deliver contents of the strategy. From there, KPIs will naturally come out of that, of course, depending on what will be best from case perspective to mark the progress of the strategy, and also what the committee would like to see so they can, again, scrutinise the delivery of the strategy. So that would be evolved as the action plan comes into place.
How we feel.
Okay, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, just to kind of add to that, I think we've put it on the forward plan for the Green Fleet Strategy Action Plan to come to this committee in November to have a look through and offer feedback on. So in November we will have developed the action plan that links to the Green Fleet Strategy. We'll offer some KPIs on what we hope to achieve and how we'll get there, and the committee will receive a full update on all of that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. And first of all, congratulations on the appointment to Chairman. Great to see you up there. I think it's a question for Giles, just on the data side of things, and obviously, Phil Swinton will know my ideas when it comes to kind of presenting data and trends from the housing kind of OSC. I was just wondering, when it kind of comes to, just take Environment 3, the point about here about kind of what is our percentage usage of electric vehicle kind of charges, I think that's the one. Would it be possible to kind of see that data every quarter are we trending up, are we trending down, just how is there a better way that we can kind of present that in the report so we can kind of, I know obviously green's on target, but actually kind of how on target is it, can we actually kind of see the trends across the quarter, and obviously as this corporate plan is going to be here for the foreseeable future, kind of, how does it kind of track over time? So I'm probably just giving Charles some more work there. But yeah, if there is a way to see trends when it comes to KPIs, that would be super useful. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Bailey. Of course, yes. So we'll be able to see the trend being displayed through the KPI dashboard, which of course we showed off earlier in the year. And now development that's nearly finished. We should be able to bring that forward and publish it on the full public website once this committee season is over. So that will then track the data I think you want to see there when it comes to the trends over time. And really, I think, again, I think we'd welcome any feedback on how you wish to have the data presented so it's most useful for you as a committee. So take that on board and implement that moving forward.
Thank you. Okay. Any more questions? Councillor Mark Whittington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for allowing me to have a second question. It relates to Enviro 13. It's really around the commentary. I mean, I'm not asking about the work on the depot, but really what's going to happen to the Alexandra Road site. I'm disappointed to see that we had been obviously talking to Lincolnshire County Council about a kind of a joint scheme for that. And I'm really disappointed that the County Council have now withdrawn from those negotiations, because part of the reason for wanting to move, first of all, our depot and then subsequently the household waste recycling centre was a tremendous impact the use of Alexandra Road has upon local residents in terms of vehicle movements. As I say, I'm disappointed that the County Council have decided that they want to withdraw from these negotiations. What impact is that likely to have on our ideas for what we'd like to do with Alexandra Road? Because I imagine it has had quite a big impact. I'm just wondering if at some point this committee may need to get a report to come back on that, because obviously it would have been far more advantageous to have a joint scheme, but the impact now of the County Council's actions is likely to be quite detrimental, I thought. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to put this over to Councillor Rees-Baker. Are you happy to take that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Whittington. You are, as so often, spot on the money. We are also deeply disappointed that we couldn't find a middle way that allowed the site as a whole to find a new lease on life, a new purpose. As you've correctly said, the site as is has a huge impact right in the centre of Grantham. The vehicle movements are challenging and if nothing else, I suppose, demonstrates the skill of our HGV drivers. But you've also got the aesthetic, you've got the smell, you've got the difficulty in transitioning just a parcel of that land as a brownfield site to something that could meet other needs within Grantham and our district, whilst maintaining a very active, very useful recycling site at the same point, which will still see those 40-ton vehicles coming and going, winding their way through incredibly narrow streets. I'm also deeply disappointed with the decision, simply on a perspective that I've always acted as a custodian of public assets and public money. And I thought that understanding was shared. And by refusing or being unable to find an innovative solution to dispose of that land jointly, it, as you correctly say, significantly reduces the range of applications that site can be used for, and therefore the cost of the site. It doesn't become as valuable to developers, it becomes more of a challenge to develop. As far as what the ongoing plan is, the Finance and Economic Scrutiny Committee have the depot project on their agenda as a standing order at the moment. The depot is discussed on a monthly basis between myself, Councillor Cleaver and Councillor Lay. And we are exploring all avenues and all issues. And obviously, given the public nature of this section of the meeting, I'm limited in what can be said there. But I echo the calls for cooperation, and I fully anticipate a lot of the plans will be delivered to FIOSC in the near future.
Thank you. Councillor Dobson.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on the chairmanship. Yes, I'd like to ask here that we've just produced a new local plan, and I've seen on that, I'd like to know whether we are involved, or if you good people over there are involved in looking at this local plan and just working out whether it is sustainable, that we have the proper sewage, water supplies, power supplies to these houses, because I think it seems at the moment it's a random thing. It looks like people have got parcels of land and said, yep, that's where we develop. So I'm just wondering how much input that you've all had on these proposals. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Rees-Baker.
Thank you. As I commented at Cabinet, I don't think anybody elected to this chamber got into this business to build houses in the countryside. We also have to acknowledge that the countryside is not a museum either. We can't freeze it in time. And I think your question cuts to the very heart of what a local plan needs to do, and that is sensitive, high-quality development with the appropriate services, so that people can be confident that the houses aren't going to flood, people can be confident that the lights are going to stay on, there's capacity in the grid. As part of the draft local plan section 18 preparation, which goes live imminently, it should be up at the very least by the start of July, the planning team, the Cabinet, have gone over a vast number of sites. We have discounted a vast number of sites. We had a frankly outstanding presentation at the start of that cabinet meeting from Shazaranan, who has led on this, that is now in the public domain and recorded. I actually have it clipped, and I'm happy to provide that to councillors. It is a very accessible, thoughtful way of describing how we have come to the decisions for the sites that we are consulting on. The second half of making sure that the infrastructure is in place is partly addressed through the next stage in the process, which is an infrastructure plan, which is a very deep dive specifically into the state of the infrastructure as it stands and what we believe we need. And that moves even more broadly from what Councillor Dobson has mentioned, in a way just from sewerage, power and water supply to sites, which are absolutely vital, and also into that human infrastructure of GPs, school places and so on. As far as what insight and input does this body have, the consultation, when it goes live, is accessible for any and all of us to go into, and I think that we have a duty to our residents, having had such high quality briefings on this subject. We have a duty to perhaps spend even longer than our residents will on our own responses. We have the knowledge, we have the insight to respond fully, and that's not just coming from what SKDC as a council working under government targets have to do. That is also your local knowledge, that is pulling together all of the information that wouldn't necessarily be captured in a site visit. I am very confident that the sites as selected represent the best of what came forward. We cannot force landowners to come forward with land. Every piece of land had a site assessment. Every piece of land had a in-person site visit with members of the planning team and members of other services across county and across places like Anglian Water. I think that we have to acknowledge that we are in a situation not of our own making, and that when the government decide to meet one of their targets, that they are going to raise the number of dwellings that must be built by nearly 30%, almost overnight, when we were at an advanced stage in our own last Section 18 consultation, I would say was misjudged and puts significant additional pressure onto local authorities at a time when other government policies are already stretching our resources, such as local government reorganisation, such as removal of rural grants, such as the ongoing cost pressures in a number of our public services.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Councillor Max? Sir?
Thank you, Chairman. Question relating to fly tipping. How much does it cost us to deal with fly tipping? Do we have a breakdown of the items that are commonly fly tipped? Have we had any successful prosecutions? And were we to collect discarded large household items free of charge, would we gain or lose money doing that? I don't necessarily expect answers to all of those immediately, of course.
I'm going to pass this one over to Aisha, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I can't answer all those questions right now because it's split between a couple of departments. So the service that I cover is fly tipping enforcement, and then you've got street scene that do the collection. So I don't have the information to hand, but we can certainly look at it and gather that information. So that's on the costs and the breakdown. And then in terms of prosecution, there are a couple of penalties for fly tipping that we can put in place. So we have the options of fixed penalty notices. So for a fly tipper, we can issue a fixed penalty notice, which is £1,000. When that's not paid, we go to prosecution, and we have one of those cases that's going to go to prosecution. And we also have duty of care fixed penalty notice, which is £600, and that's for the person that gave the waste to the fly tipper, because we all have a responsibility to making the relevant checks and making sure that they have the waste carrier's licence. There is a penalty for that. In certain cases, it will be appropriate and proportionate to prosecute. We have a couple of cases that will be going to prosecution. The difficulty of prosecution, it takes time to build the evidence and have go to court, but also get a court date and progress it that way. So we do have some in hand, but over the last year we have done a couple of fixed penalties as well. So we are trying to up the enforcement, raise awareness. I'm also chair of the Lincolnshire Environmental Crime Partnership, so it's a collective Lincolnshire approach to raise awareness about environmental crime fly tipping. And there's recently, I know you haven't asked this, but I'll just mention it anyway, we're going into schools, so we've done a training plan that will go into schools through fire and rescue, which I'm really excited about, because that is about the culture change of accepting fly tipping as something that can continue to occur. So hope I've answered the question.
Thanks very much, Aisha. We'll go over to Councillor Ian Selby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is following on from what Councillor Mark Whittington was talking about with regarding Alexander Road, and in reference to the local government reorganisation in 2-3 years' time, whatever. I'm just wondering what's going to happen when the county council no longer exists, and we've got county council land owned, such as the Alexander Road in South Kesteven, and for that matter, any other county council land in areas that's in our district. What will happen to the ownership of the county council property? See, the leader's just come in, maybe the leader can answer it, or somebody. It'd just be interesting to find out what happens, whether it automatically, does it become ours? I don't know.
Thank you very much, Councillor Selby. I believe Rhys Baker, you may have the answers. You've waved your hand here. Yep. Okay, defer to leader. He's now deferring back.
I'll take the hospital pass. And that isn't a comment on the question. The question's fantastic. It's a comment on how we couldn't decide who to answer it. Local government reorganisation, for those who are watching at home who aren't exercised by this and don't stay up late into the night ruminating and thinking about it, is the government's, one of the government's flagship proposals to change how Lincolnshire is organised. At the moment, we have Lincolnshire County Council as an upper tier authority, and then we have 7 district councils as a lower tier authority. I know everybody in the room understands that. At the moment, we have just received a 14-page letter of feedback from our initial proposals on how SKDC with some partners wish to proceed in a way that we feel is best for our residents, best for our area, and manages the unique challenges of the urban centres and a largely rural 350 square mile district. We are not the only people who have submitted those plans and submitted thoughts to the government, and we're not the only people who have received feedback. We will submit a finalised set of plans in November. So there is a very real possibility that our plan that is mentioned by Councillor Selby would not be the plan that is selected, in which case we would actually all be subsumed into Lincolnshire County as a full county council. As far as ownership of assets is concerned, that is one of the massive pieces of work that has to happen as a result. It's one of the ripple effects that moves out from this, because we will need to transfer ownership, transfer contracts into the name of the new authority. And if Lincolnshire County Council ceases to exist as an operating body, there will need to be negotiation with what happens with those assets and with that land. At this time, I do not believe Lincolnshire County Council is even considering that as an option. I do believe they are firmly pushing their own plan. But it is a rapidly changing and ongoing discussion that we are having excellent representation at and ongoing negotiations. And I think the Cabinet get weekly briefings on this. As soon as there is something that we can provide that is a material update from the last one that we've provided, we will absolutely provide that. But based on the 23-degree angle of Councillor Baxter's head at the moment, I imagine he's got something to add.
I'm going to take the lead, Councillor Selby, then I'll come straight to you afterwards. Ashley Baxter.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Baker, for putting out that background. The question was about who owns the land, or who will own the land? Yeah, the land will be owned by the successor, so all the SK land will be owned by the successor unitary authority. All the county council owned land will be owned by the same successor unitary authority, so it will still be publicly owned land. If anything, it makes life a little bit easier at the Alexander Road depot, because some of it is county, some of it is district, so it'll all be owned by the same unitary authority. And I hope that when we're all in one unitary authority, the communication between the Waste Collection Authority and the Waste Disposal Authority and the people that provide county streetlights and district streetlights and everything else that's done by the district and done by the county will communicate better as being under one umbrella. But who knows? It happened some years ago, it happened in Nottingham that all the functions of the county were given to Nottingham as a unitary, and it meant that instead of having to send an email and get permission from the chief executive to talk to the counterpart at the county, they could just go into the next office, like you'd imagine. So I wouldn't worry. The land won't disappear.
Councillor Selby.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think that's as good an answer as we can have. I think as Councillor Rees-Baker was suggesting, we need to wait and see what comes forward with those things. But another question is, will they sell off various assets in order to fill the black hole of debt that they've created over recent years as well? There's that thought as well. But hopefully, as Councillor Baxter has alluded to, hopefully it would make things so much simpler if it did come under our control, and then it just solves a lot of problems all round, doesn't it? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Are there any further questions? Councillor Max.
Thank you again, Chairman. Question on solar panels. My reading, and I apologise if I'm wrong, is that even for new builds, we're looking at solar panels as being add-ons to a completed build. Have we looked at the modern version of panels that combine the role of both roof and electricity generator, which would mean no need for adding on additional panels to a building?
Okay. Who will answer this one? Do we have anybody who can answer on this one? I mean, obviously, I appreciate your question, but we do need to try and keep it under the KPIs, so I'm being informed by my Vice Chair here. So I'm taking that advice from Councillor Baker. So is there anybody who can answer that, or no? We will try and get you the answer, and we'll get the answer as soon as we can for you, all right? Thank you.
Can you send an email, please?
Yeah, send you an email, thank you. Any further questions on this matter? Well, if that's the case, then can we have a vote for the noting? So all those... do we have a proposer, sorry? Councillor Whittington? Seconder? Councillor Dobson? And all those in favour, raise your hands. Anyone against? Abstention? No, that's it. Thank you. Noted. Okay, we move on to item 8, restructure of waste collection rounds, which this is for Councillor Rees-Baker to present. Councillor Baker, do you have enough water there for you? As you really probably need some more water. If you do, please shout and we'll get you some. Okay? So I'll hand over to Councillor Baker for this one. Thank you.
My introduction is only 35 pages long, so it's a brief one. People's bin days are going to change. This report says why. That's the central message. However, I do need to highlight a few things for those who won't read the report. And I hope you'll talk to me after I talk to them. In 2012, we were gearing up for the Olympic Games. The cost of a first-class stamp went from 46 pence to 60 pence and dominated headlines for a week. JJB closed down. That was also the last time SKDC reviewed their rounds. SKDC, by population, is 8% larger than in 2012. That is around 10,000 more residents, more than 5,000 additional homes. And we can all think of how housing estates have expanded in the last 13 years. Helsey Park looms large in mind. Think of the roads and cul-de-sacs that have been born in the last decade. As more families move to make their home in South Kesteven, the District Council has added their addresses onto existing bin rounds, one bin round or another. And a few here and there doesn't make much difference, but over 13 years it adds up to more than 5,000 collections. A lot more than 5,000 collections. Because our crews now collect over 81,000 bins a week. Rain or shine, Countryside Farm or Grantham Terrace. And we will continue to collect for everyone. But to do that, we are left with a choice. One way or another, a choice has to be made. The first option, keep everything as it is. Half-finished housing estates become completed, more roads are born, more houses need more bins, those bins need emptying. And the only way, under that scenario, that we can make sure that we keep emptying those bins is to buy more bin lorries. A new bin lorry costs £250,000. And they have a 40-week waiting list. And each lorry needs a highly skilled, qualified HGV driver and 2 skilled crew at least. The second option, we change how we collect our bins. We look at what we do with a completely fresh sheet of paper. And we've looked, what days do we have more bins to empty? What days do we have fewer to empty? Where do we reduce mileage? Where are lorries driving empty where they could be full? Where are we crisscrossing? When did Deeping estates have to be emptied by Grantham crews? And that's a speculative example, because there were no other vehicles. How can we reduce backtracking? Can we reduce repeat trips? And the option that made the biggest savings was the option that changes people's bin days. That second option also opens up a better quality of service. We expect fewer missed bins. We expect faster mop-ups when they do happen. We expect less impact from roadworks, traffic and poor weather because the crews aren't going to be travelling and crisscrossing across the district, running around like a blue-bottomed fly, trying to keep all of the new homes empty. In short, this report proposes a resilient, modern service that is better value for money. And to keep it that way, we will be doing annual round reviews in-house. I said it earlier on, we are custodians of public money. And to put it very bluntly, we had to choose between spending hundreds of thousands of pounds to keep an out-of-date system limping on, or innovate and provide a service that was higher quality at a lower price. We face rising demand without rising money. and our officers squared that circle to prevent a gap in a key public service. The price for that is change and some limited disruption for our residents, and I am genuinely sorry about that. Some people's bin days have not changed since they've moved to the area. Some people's bin days haven't changed since we introduced recycling at the turn of the millennium. But Kay is working incredibly hard with the team. I am working incredibly hard with Kay to make this change as smooth as possible. And if you are worried about these changes, please speak to your local councillor. Please email me or the team, and we will listen. So thank you to everyone involved in this report, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Baker. Emma?
Yeah.
Emma?
I've got a fair few questions, but I'll start with one. My biggest concern here was the fact that it's taken, 13 years. So 2012 was our last review, and then it took up to August 2022 for us to undertake a review. And this has obviously been, for us, for me, it's been happening in the background. I've not really known about it, and I'm concerned about that in itself as well, the fact that we as a committee potentially weren't aware of these reviews or lack thereof coming forwards. But it then says, that actually we need to be having annual reviews or 18-month reviews, and yet I see nothing on the KPIs coming. So I'm just wondering how we're going to ensure that we don't have another 13-year gap and end up in a really similar situation in 13 years' time, where we are then having to communicate on such a large scale, because I think if we're reviewing annually, we can absolutely make those adjustments on a small scale and impact less people. So yeah, that's just my first of many questions.
I'm going to pass over to Kay.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I completely agree. Obviously, I've only been here for 18 months, but it is a little bit of a concern that this has gone so long. And the way that we've tried to loop that into the KPIs is through the Green Fleet strategy. So as part of the Green Fleet strategy, there will be KPIs linked to not just route reviews for the waste service, but any service that uses vehicles, and how we can incorporate technology to make sure the rounds are optimised for every single service area, and this will link into that. So I do understand that's probably not actually a direct link, but there is something in there which we can obviously feed back, and I do share your your reason for raising that concern. But hopefully moving forward, as we make these changes and formalise it a bit more, it will fall more into that fleet strategy because of the environmental impact that come from the emissions of the vehicles.
Yeah, you may come back, Emma.
I'm just going to come back on that because that answers another question that I was going to say. So I don't know whether this is you or Serena in this, but how do we envisage that that's going to impact our KPI? Is it Environment O2, which is our 30% reduction? It seems like it probably could have a positive impact. So what do we envisage that impact to be, and how are we going to measure that as well?
Yeah, happy to come back on that, Councillor Baker. So our last update on carbon emissions report was presented to the committee last September, which covered the previous financial year. That did find that fleet emissions are now the largest single area of emissions for the council. Previously was leisure centres, but we've done some great work to reduce that. So we know that we need to drive down those emissions in our fleet. That is the big purpose of the Green Fleet strategy, to link into our carbon emissions plan, and to do that. Obviously, the waste vehicles are the largest proportion of the fuel used. So simple kind of efficiency initiatives, such as restructuring the route round, will not only be intrinsically efficient, it will reduce the carbon emissions as well. I couldn't say off the top of my head what proportion that would be, but I do think it will be a significant saving once it is in place.
Councillor Rees-Baker.
Thank you, Chair. We work on officer advice. It is right and proper that we work on officer advice. I've heard us elected members described as interested amateurs. We are not trained in the areas into which we are flung, and we are a conduit between officers and the general public. And that requires an excellent relationship between the portfolio holder and the head of service, which is now in place. We've seen the step change that Kay has overseen in this service. I mentioned it at the annual general meeting. We've got one award already under our belt for most improved service, and we were finalists for a second. I highly doubt those will be the last ones, given the drive that Kay shows in our meetings and her determination to make everything better for people. Kay talks to me in terms of people, not in terms of numbers. I was very blessed to have a briefing from Councillor Whittington at the transfer of the portfolio, but the waste review predated even his tenure. And at that point, I am expecting the lead officer to raise this when I have those portfolio meetings. And that did not happen. And it did happen with Kay. Now, we can spend time as a committee investigating that and looking at what went wrong. But it doesn't stop it being a brute fact that that is the history. And it doesn't stop that you have a proposal today that fundamentally changes the relationship of the waste service and its ongoing evaluation. As for transparency, we have been alerting this at a number of stages, at a number of meetings. Both myself and Councillor Baxter have raised this as an issue for warning and foreshadowing that this service change was coming down the pipeline. We have been unfortunate that plans were delayed because of PERDA, but there was a careful balance between waiting for the external report to come in, providing our own feedback to that draft report to provide clarity and get a higher quality report, and also making sure that we had a communications plan ready to go in place. Because, make no mistake, this is going to distress people. This isn't just going to annoy. There are going to be residents in all of our wards that will be genuinely distressed by this news, that will be worried about what it means for them. They will be worried about putting their bin out on the wrong day. And we might chuckle, we might think that's very parochial, but I'm thinking of an 83-year-old living in one of our small villages who's always put her bin out on a Tuesday morning, and now it doesn't go out, and she forgets the first week and then is worried, what am I going to do with my bin? So we have a duty of care and responsibility to make sure that, yes, we give notice, but we give notice in such a way that there is a comms plan in place, that members are all singing off the same hymn sheet, that we can be consistent about what is going to happen. And I have made decisions on that timescale, I have made decisions about when that was going to happen, that I made with that careful balance in mind. And if residents believe I have got it wrong, I will listen to that feedback.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Whittington, I know you're waiting for a question. The others are on the way. I have got you noted all down.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your elevation to chairman of this committee. Thanks, Councillor Baker. As Councillor Baker has mentioned, when I had the portfolio in August 2022. Well, I inherited it in the February 22. And when I became aware there hadn't been a review of our waste rounds since 2012, I put it on the work agenda, and that's when we commissioned the work. I don't know what happened in the transition until Kay took over, and I'm not going to go there. But what I will put on the record is that regardless of which party had won the elections 2 years ago, this review would have happened regardless, because we're in a situation where it hadn't been done since 2012. As Councillor Baker has said, the makeup of the area has changed. We've still got changes coming down with all the extra increased houses that are now coming to the district, so it makes sense. And one thing I did say, we need to have more frequent reviews, and I'm pleased they're going to be annual reviews because they are required. So I think it's just important to put on record that regardless of which party or which combination of parties would be in control of SK today, this decision would have been taken regardless, because it was in the pipeline. It was fundamental to taking the bin collection service forward. So I think that's a really important point to make. It is going to cause, as Councillor Baker has said, a lot of change and potentially quite a lot of anxiety for people. So I think it's important that we all get behind this, because it will undoubtedly lead to an improved service. It's going to take time. There's going to be a transition phase. We know from when we put in the twin track recycling that sometimes things have teething problems. So all I would ask from the administration and from the officers is that during that transition phase, we try to be as kind as we possibly can with local residents. It's about education, it's about information, it's about making sure people aren't distressed. They know exactly which day their bins are due to go out. So I think communication here is vital, and communication as early as possible. And then during the transition, hopefully a transition phase when we're not going to take draconian action against people who put their bins out on the wrong day, but we adopt a sensible, pragmatic approach to get us through those initial 2 or 3 months where there's likely to be teething problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trotter?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Miss Bins, I'll be quite plain and simple. As you know, residents just want their bins emptying. If this is going to improve it, then I'm all for it. I am, I'm the rural ward councillor, and I have been in contact with Councillor Baker. Assisted bin missed, left for a week. I say that's not normal pattern, but it has happened before and before that. And to that one resident, it causes an awful lot of stress. Everyone else goes about their normal day, but that one person, we're Lincolnshire, we're not Birmingham, but that bin that's over, rubbish on the floor, it's distressing. So yes, I'm all for improvement. Councillor Whittington took the words out of my mouth. I don't want people running after the bin saying that the wagon, you've not collected my bin. We had bin gate, so let's not have it again, please. And thank you for reviewing. We just want better, and I just want my residents' bin emptying, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dobson?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and thank you very much, Councillor Baker, for initiating all of this. I think you were, a major part of it. We had the terrible situation in our village where, of course, the truck went down past us all and went into little side turnings, and then the following week it came back to do ours, so completely inefficient, and it caused all sorts of problems. So I'm really, really pleased that we're going ahead with this change. When will that be announced? I'm asking at the moment, when are we going to know when it's going to start? And do you think we could send the message to the parish councils before we actually put it out, so it actually comes out through them as well and can go in the local magazines? Thank you very much, Chairman.
Okay, yeah.
Answer all.
Reason what?
Okay, you'll get your answer from Reese at the end for your questions, okay? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, first of all, introduction of bin calendar to remind people of what's going on is very, very welcome. I've had so many residents complaining we haven't received them this year. I think it's going to be a great move, and I hope it's something we actually, regardless of recycling such like, I think it actually helps people, particularly the elderly, who haven't got access to the internet all the time. Okay, moving on from that one, something I think you should bear in mind with these rollouts and reorganisations and such like is that come next June, obviously we're rolling out orange bins as well. I think it would be a smart move for council to ensure that we don't get into a scenario where you have a black bin collected on a Monday, an orange bin collected on a Tuesday and a green bin collected on a Wednesday. It would probably drive the residents mad having to always be out putting a bin out every other day of the week. So come next June, I hope these reorganisations of the rounds are going to be considered properly rather than just what suits us, it's what suits the residents. Okay, now, I have a query regarding finances, okay, because obviously it says on here that the change of the rams is going to save up to 2 bin rams, 2 lorries, etc. A couple of months ago we purchased, or we discussed on here, the purchase of food waste vehicles costing £1.13 million, and then we've just gone and purchased the refuse vehicles for the food area for 1.2 million. Now, that's a total of £2.4 million spent on lorries, which is great, good to hear. However, if we're going to be saving 2 bin lorries worth of RAM, 2 rams lorries, was that actually considered when we did those purchases? At the time we were told we're purchasing 1 spare, so does this now mean we can have 3 spare lorries, which seems rather excessive considering the cost? And a key point with this is we were told that green collections are funded wholly by the amount of money raised for the charges, and we weren't going to profit from that. So if a green bin round is going to become cheaper, which it looks like we're going to save at least 1 round's worth with this, that should save us over £100,000 a year on that green collection. That implies that we're going to be able to cut the cost of green bins from £50 odd a year by probably £5. Is that something the council's considered? Because according to this, you're thinking of putting it into the food waste collection, which I'm not sure you're supposed to do from what we were told previously. So are we potentially looking at saving a £5 on a green bin for next year, which would be fab? And my last question on this is literally just, there's a slight discrepancy in figures here. We were previously told there are 36,000 subscribers to the green bin round, whereas this implies there's 29,700. So I'm not sure we've got our figures correct on that, and it would be good to have a correction on that at some point in the future so we know how successful green bins are. Thank you.
Did you want to answer that, or do you want to leave that till later? I'm just obviously thinking of the people at home, because this figure's being spoken out. I do not want them to sort of get lost at home who's watching. Can you put your microphone on, please, Councillor Baker?
Of course, thank you. On this one, there are chunks of that question that I think can be better placed elsewhere, but specifically on the finances and the numbers, I believe Kay is better placed to comment on those ones from an operational perspective. So if we can have that one through officers, and then I will add, if necessary, at a sort of summary. I am keeping a careful note of all of these questions. I will repeat the question as I go through all of them. It's just to provide everybody with an easier opportunity and give my voice at least a few moments rest.
No, I appreciate that, Councillor Baker. So, Kay, did you want to answer now, or...?
Just on the figures, I'm going to double check them and see if I can get a feedback on what should be right before the end of the meeting, so we can clarify in terms of the update the uptake of the garden waste service. In terms of the service costing less as well for the garden waste, the subscribers kind of go up year on year, and the services, you know, we're struggling, falling behind, as I'm sure you've seen. When the weights are heavy, we miss a lot of green bins. So I think for me, in terms of that garden waste, green waste service provision, we would look to improve it. We want an improved offer for our residents, and we appreciate that in the growing season it's not the best that it can be. So I don't think at this stage we'd consider cutting the fee. But obviously that would be a decision to be made, budget setting later on.
Thank you very much. Councillor Max.
Thank you, Chairman. As a Stamford Town Councillor, where the population is set to increase by 35% over the next few years, I do welcome the idea of more frequent rebalancing. Just for clarity, page 24, paragraph 3.7, should it be biannually or biennially? Sorry?
Twice a year or once?
Yes, is it twice a year or once every 2 years? At the moment, it is twice a year, that is correct. Yes. While I'm metaphorically on my feet, I'd just like to point out I've contacted Kay any number of times with problems raised by residents about waste collection. I'd just like to commend her in this meeting for the prompt and efficient way with which she invariably deals with them. So well done, Kay, and thank you.
Thank you. And just on that matter, Kay, did you want to answer that about 3.7 on the relevant page?
I was just going to confirm it is every 2 years, so my apologies. Brian.
Yes.
Yeah, can we get that noted?
We will get that noted. Josh, is that okay? Thank you. Councillor Matt Paley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just actually similar point to Councillor Martin around the finance procurement, I guess, paragraph 1.1. I'm just kind of reading this. Obviously, this change is going to happen in September, and we are looking to start the food caddy kind of collection in April. And obviously, it talks there about kind of, we're spending 100,000 per crew, and we're going to reduce it by 2 crews. I'm just kind of, what are we going to do between September and April with the 2 drivers and the 4 operatives? I assume we're not going to go through redundancies or anything like that, but it looks like we've got a 6-month period where, technically speaking, we have too many operatives. I'm just kind of wondered about kind of what is the process going to look like to fix that little kind of question, which I'm sure somebody has an answer to. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I've just got to go over to Councillor Ian Selby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, big thanks to Kayleigh for the work that she's been doing on this, so thank you, Kayleigh. Let's be positive about this. This is not going to be as dramatic, I think, as what we've possibly heard. This is being done for all the right reasons. We've not had this review, as I've said, for quite a number of years. Things do change. I mean, bank holidays, when we have a bank holiday, the day of the bin collection changes for some people. And I think, give the people a little bit more credit. I think they'll adapt better than what we think. The big key is going to be communication, as Councillor Mark Whittington alluded to. If we get the communication right, you're well over halfway there. That will be the big thing. And also, Mark touched upon about draconian measures. Let's avoid those. Let's avoid those at all costs. Now, just remember, looking back to the introduction of the purple-lidded bins, look at all the issues we had over that. That created a few issues, but we overcome them. And we can do the same with this. So let's have the glass half full and go about it in a positive manner. For some people, the change of the day of the bins might just suit them better. So let's not look negative on this. Let's go forward with this in a positive manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Selby. Councillor Emma Baker.
Yeah, just on the back of that, do we have a date specifically of when we envisage letting our residents know which day it is? So when can we start that communication with our residents? Thanks.
Okay. Or Councillor Baker. Okay, okay.
In terms of the date for the communications, we intend for it to go kind of live from around the 1st of August. So the plan is to coincide it with that summer period. We didn't want to do the restructure for the summer period because lots of people are away. So we intend to do kind of a big communications campaign. We've got lots of methods that we're going to take forward. Obviously happy to include anybody, parish councils, for example, that you might want it to go to. We're not just doing social media. We've got a whole project group now looking at this, including our wonderful comms team, Chris Prine, Patrick. We're all looking at what we can do. Our customer services team are involved as well. So we will do everything we can to make this as painless as possible. And I think the comms will start rolling from the 1st of August. Around mid-August, we'll start writing out to residents. From early September, we'll really intensify it. And as the service rolls out those first few times, and we talk about what we'll do with those resources in the interim, as we've kind of talked about in the committee, we're not going to go hard-faced and say, no, if you put your bin out on the wrong day, we're not going to collect it. We do anticipate there'll be a couple of rounds of collections where we will need to facilitate residents who have misunderstood or just kind of being fully out of the loop with it, and ensure their bins are collected and the message is communicated to them. And we'll use that additional resource in that run up to Christmas to facilitate that, to enable us to be a bit kinder with our approach. So it won't just be on this date everything changes, and if you've put your bin out, we won't, tough, wait till next time. That's not what's going to happen. It's going to be more of a kind of listening to the feedback and helping residents, and that's what that extra resource will be doing for that time. We do anticipate it's such a big change, and people are going to potentially struggle, especially our more vulnerable residents, so we're happy to support that. That will take us up to around Christmas, we anticipate, as we run up to Christmas, which is always an incredibly busy time for us. And we're always low on resources because of the holidays, so the resource then will support that function, which will help us mitigate missed bins and inclement weather and all that good stuff that comes with December and January. But then from January we will be advertising, marketing, communicating our brand new food waste service, and that spare resource, those operatives will unfortunately, possibly for them, have around 70,000 indoor and outdoor caddies to assemble into packs and then start delivering around the district. So those resources, instead of hiring in resources to do that delivery, we'll be doing it with that spare capacity, delivering we intend to make a pack up with the caddies and some communications bits and bobs. They'll be delivering it, testing out the routes, just making sure when we go live on that food waste early April that we've got everything in line. So I think that there's going to be plenty for those operatives to do once they come off their normal rounds.
Thank you. And regarding the advertisement, don't forget we do have a good radio station that can help you along with that as well, here in Grantham, which will certainly get into those local homes that we needed to get into. Councillor Baker.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to go through all of the questions that I've got notes on and hopefully provide a one-stop shop that you can clip and pass on to social media or your parish councils. So the theme of being kind has run through a number of different questions and comments, and that is absolutely at the forefront of our minds. We have 100% control over this rollout. We're not in partnership with anybody. We set the rules, which allows us to be kind. It allows us to have a longer implementation period. It allows us to show some flexibility, and it allows us to identify pockets of difficulty and then target support in there. We are not tagging bins for this. It is not the return of the bin police. I did not enjoy that period of my council career. That will come as a shock to nobody. I am not in a hurry to repeat it, and we have learnt significant lessons from it. Good communication is vital is another theme that has run through from a number of different speakers. Absolutely agree, and Kay and I have already spoken about how we cannot assume that people look on the website or on social media. We've got physical leaflets that will be distributed. I want to see them in a number of different locations, and I am speaking with Kay imminently about what those locations can be. But I cannot overemphasise the role that members have in this. I need your help. I need the help of the full council. I am incredibly grateful to Councillor Whittington for his comments about how this is not a political issue. Whoever was sat here, of whatever coloured rosette, would be saying the same thing to you, because Kay is brilliant and was not going to subsidise an inefficient service. And on that basis, we need to pull together, give the same messaging, because the only people who lose out, if we don't, are the residents. So I will be asking for your help. I will be emailing several reminders repeatedly to parish and town councils, reminding them of this, using their town and parish notice boards, getting information to where people are rather than where we wished they were. There was questions on missed bins. I don't think you could sum it up better than Councillor Trotter just did. For that one resident, that is a massive problem. And the service as we envisage it is going to have much more resilience because it is doing fewer miles, it is crossing fewer roads, there's going to be fewer roadworks getting in the way, there's going to be fewer mechanical issues because of a reduced usage of the vehicles. We're going to have the spare capacity so that when a vehicle breaks down, and they do, we've got a vehicle that we can hop into and get out there. I think that is an improvement that does not detract from the fact that bins get missed. They do. The missed bins have come down significantly from their peak, and we want to see them absolutely as low as possible. And repeated failures at an address are not acceptable. This is why we are investing in the service. We have further investments coming down the line to look at the in-cab system and the planning system and how the information in the cab of one of these vehicles syncs up to the depot. And we have plans to have something in place very shortly that will have that as very nearly instantaneously. So if they've driven down past a side street and we get someone on the blower, we can get them, perhaps, depending on how quickly the issue comes in, before they've even left the cul-de-sac, and get them straight back into place. Bingate, thanks for re-inflicting that wound on my psyche. I know what I'll talk to the therapist about this week. The bin calendar, I agree, I think it's a great move. I wish I could claim credit for it, but as with so many of these things, it doesn't sit with me, it sits with Kay and the operations team. I would love to have that letter in our council tax letter. I'd love to have that calendar sent out as a matter of course within our council tax letter. I believe those conversations have already started with Mr Wiles, and hopefully that will be in a place where we can move forward. You almost lost me when you said orange bins. I'm like, oh my goodness, what's coming now? For clarity, that is the food waste caddy system that is coming in. It does have a beautiful orange lid, so I caught on that one. Just a quick correction of the record, that is set to start in early April, not in June, which means it is even more important that this change is bedded in properly, carefully and sensitively. You are absolutely right that there are statements and claims that I think are meant to be generic about finances that you have no way of verifying in that report. That is my failing. I have weekly updates from Kay and monthly portfolio briefings. And when I reviewed this report, I already knew a lot of the costs, the pricings and information that was going through, and I didn't therefore recognise that that should have been in the report. So that is a failing from me that I apologise for. I've apologised to the Chair and the Vice Chair for that, and I've apologised at the pre-meeting as well. It is my responsibility that the reports you get are fit for purpose. And this one has made your job a lot harder, because then you have to go digging in the February 10th report to get some figures that you can look at. I apologise for that. I will do better. The green bin service is right at the forefront of our changing weather. And if there is one service that provides more complaints than any other, it is the green bin service. We see more missed bins, we see more complaints. Oh, they picked up number 26s, but they didn't pick mine, they just drove off. Those vehicles have a weight limit, and it is not a soft weight limit. It is, once that weight limit is reached, they are legally required to return to the transfer station. They must do that, because it is illegal to operate overweighted vehicles on our road. Now, they weigh 40 tonnes empty. And with a wet June full of grass in there, they very quickly reach their capacity and then have to do many, many more trips back and forth to the transfer station to empty. That invites the question, well, why don't they come back for me? Sensible question as well. There is also a legal limit on the number of driver hours per day and the cumulative driver hours per week. If, because we're having to go back and forth to the transfer station more frequently, we hit that taco cut-off, the driver can't drive anymore. And for that reason, whilst we have a green bin schedule and a green bin round, we also have capacity in the system to do mop-up rounds. We expect, particularly in wet, warm weather, for that capacity to be reached more quickly. And pursuant to Councillor Bailey's remarks, that is a wonderful piece of capacity that we will have because of this reorganisation. And it will be a future piece of capacity that we will have because of the new depot allowing us parking space for more vehicles. At the moment, we don't have enough space to put any more vehicles on our Alexandra Road depot. I will absolutely get the discrepancy corrected on the record for the discrepancies for the green bin rounds. That's absolutely important, that we can have trust in the data that we provide. I think Kay has given a very excellent summary of all the different tasks that the capacity within the crew system will have following this starting up in September. I don't know if we're going to inflict that, Kay, on just one crew, or we're going to spread the love and joy of these tasks amongst others over a number of weeks, but that there is definitely plenty of capacity there and plenty of work to be done. There is also, as the February report mentions, there is anticipated sickness in rounds anyway. There is anticipated spend on cover for support crews coming in, breakdowns, inclement weather causing delays. We saw the huge efforts that it took our crews to get back on top of things after the flooding at the start of this year. I hope and pray that we don't see a repeat of that, but the extra capacity would be very welcome if ever it did repeat. We've got the dates going live from communications. There are lots and lots of methods and lots of budgets to go in there, not just social media. But I do want to, again, just remind everybody that we can all smooth this out. I will give the tools, I will give the FAQs, I will give the social media posts and the letters and the information that you need. And if you need any more, you can ask me. But I can't do 350 square miles myself, so I am going to need the full council to help. If I've missed any, please let me know. I think Kay wants to come back on just one or two points on there for a bit more detail.
Kay?
Thank you. Just for clarification on the numbers, so I know the report says total locations for green waste is around 29,000. 700 and the total bins is just shy of 35,000. That's because multiple properties have multiple bins. I think one property has around 8 bins, which is our max, which is a lot of bins, which apparently is used as a driveway blocker. So there's lots. The reason that there's a discrepancy in those figures is because one is number of customers and one is the total number of bins. So that's why it looks a little bit different. In terms of the calendars, we do accept that this year it didn't go as we'd like. So when we released the letter for the amended rounds, we will include an up-to-date calendar which will take them into April, and then when we send the council tax out, the plan this year is to also include a new calendar with the food waste rounds on, which will pick up from April. So there should be a month overlap to give us a little bit of leeway, but that new calendar will be delivered then, so residents should have a continuous calendar which reflects the changing of the services. And I think that's everything I just wanted to add, just to clarify those points, that they are there, we are working on them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dobson, are you still requiring your question? Yes,
Thank
please.
you, Chairman. Yeah, Kay, I remember meeting you about a year ago, I think, when you joined, sitting on the wall outside when we had our new truck, and I spoke to you about the various things there, and I see you've been very hard at work during this year, and I think it's a great success. What I was going to say, though, is that if we are going to announce this in August, could I say that we perhaps bring that forward, because a lot of people will be on holiday. If we're starting on 15th of September, I believe, are the rounds, then maybe we ought to sort of at least talk to the parish councils beforehand, so that we get it out as soon as possible.
Do you want to take that on?
Thank you. I should have clarified that better. The August is the launch date for the targeted media campaign run by Patrick and the team. It doesn't preclude any of this information going out. I will be sticking my head above the parapet for the second time in a week on Facebook and suffering the slings of arrows of outrageous comments on there. Immediately after this meeting, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I will be sending round some support materials to all councils in a similar way to that I sent round the food waste draft FAQ earlier last week. Please share widely, freely, quickly, repeatedly and openly.
Thank you. Councillor Trotter.
Yeah, I don't know if it's for yourself, Councillor Baker or Kay. Just about the high-sided, smaller, wired wagons, will that be included, obviously, in you looking at how the bigger wagons perform? Because I do know they're doing a lot of toing and froing, and they're not governed by tachographs, etc. But I'm sure they could be facilitated better for the rural bins, as I put it. So
I'll hand you over to Kay on this one, if that's okay.
They aren't governed by the tachograph, but they are governed by a different set of regulations where they do have to record their hours and times and have limits that we have to stick to quite rigidly, because if there was an accident and we weren't, then we'd be very liable, understandably. But it's all been included. So those rural properties, those difficult to reach ones, those common problems that keep coming up, a key thing for us as a team is, because they are as frustrating for us as they are for residents, believe it or not, we really want to solve the problem. So they've been included in that, and we will use our vehicle allocation to make sure that where the rounds need the vehicles, we can allocate them accordingly. So yes, we've tried to take everything into account. We've also tried to just leave a bit of resource in, so that in those first months when things may go wrong, we do have some resource to fix those problems and work with residents. So there won't be one big bad cut-off point like we've had previously. We've tried to learn from that. But if you have any specific concerns around those rural properties or areas that you want to speak to me and the team about separately, I do appreciate they have been big issues, and I'm more than happy to take that into account.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Obviously, I'm aware that we've all been sat here for quite a bit, and we've got one more item on the agenda. Are we wanting a 5-10 minute break just so we can go and refresh ourselves, or are you happy to carry on? Carry on? Fantastic. That's what I was hoping you was going to say. But I thought I'd give you the option. Okay then, so we're now just going to take a note of that, if that's correct, because I have been informed by our democratic services, I don't have to keep asking for a vote on the noting. So are we all happy for that to be noted? Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9, update on the draft tree management policy, and we'll go back to Councillor Rees-Baker to present.
It's like one of those old-fashioned BBC Two introductions, isn't it, between programmes? Back to Match of the Day. If a tree falls on council land and there is no one there to report it, does it make the front page? Trees are living things that don't usually follow instructions on how to grow. This means we need to proactively look after our trees. This report explains how we intend to do that. We don't look after every tree in South Kesteven. We are responsible for about 6,000, and most of those are in our parks and open spaces. The rest, broadly speaking, are on land belonging to council tenanted properties and closed churchyards, and they all have different needs, so they all need managing differently. The current system is very out of date. The new system is more agile. It will allow us to respond to issues faster before small problems become big ones. It will be much more proactive. It will lead to healthier trees, more resilient canopies, and happier residents. We will be ahead of problems, which will make the management easier, cheaper, and more effective. The proposed FAQ section, in my opinion, is inspired, because residents can look up their question, get a clear and transparent answer. No email, no chatbot, no waiting on hold. And eventually, that policy will match up even more with other guidelines, be even better hyperlinked, be even more accessible, to make it even easier for you to find the information you're looking for. The sections on legal obligations make the decisions predictable. Members will not have to fight or chase for explanations, because the policy makes decisions open and transparent. The section on tenants' responsibilities show that our environment is everyone's concern, and the list of nuisance issues clearly explain where the council will and will not intervene. The policy adds detail where it was desperately needed and nuance where it was sorely lacking. Our most important resource at SK is our staff. And this policy will mean staff spend more time making the district a better place and less time second-guessing out-of-date policies and playing email ping-pong. With our tree and woodland strategy celebrating its first birthday, this report demonstrates proactive, joined-up thinking. We planted 68 trees last year, and as we plan to plant more, this policy gives SK the tools we need to help us manage them. We need the right tree in the right place, but we also need the right approach to the right problem tree, if it is a problem. This administration promised to be transparent. This policy is not finished. This report acknowledges that you will have questions about costs, resourcing, staffing. Serena and the team are already researching these. That one's not me. Maybe it was. The policy will come to you again with that information. So questions about costs and staffing are best left until that second time round, because all we're going to be able to say at this moment is we are researching, we will come back to you. This policy is also separate and additional to our powers and duties as a planning authority. So questions about trees on planning developments aren't really under this discussion. That is an entirely separate, very, very big piece of work that happens outside of the remit of this OSC at the moment. But I would like to invite feedback at this early stage. In particular, have we left anything out of the policy? Do you have any major concerns about anything in the policy? What are your thoughts on the FAQ? Is it easy to read and navigate? Because ultimately this is going to be in our shop window. We expect residents to read this. And what do your residents ask you about trees? The last resident who asked me about trees was in year 4, and they asked me what my favourite tree was in an assembly in Bourne. I don't think we're including that one. The Environment team have been working on this since late 2024, and I am privileged to present their work. And again, I look forward to your questions.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one. I noticed it's got a reference here about, I have an inquiry or concern about a tree and private land. There's a reference there to go on Lincolnshire County Council's website. I just thought it might be worth just changing that to adding in Fix My Street, because it's all on there. You can log all sorts of things about trees, whether it's dying, fallen down, broken, whatever. So that's a great reference point to send people to, rather than contact the council direct. So that'd be a useful thing to do. I completely get it. The zoning of trees sounds like a really smart move, rather than doing everything in one go. Do them as and when required is brilliant. Sounds very sensible. The contract with NKDC, obviously, great. Go for it. Find out what other options are out there. It sounds sensible too. I was slightly confused about the idea of we've got all this data sitting on some kind of system that we don't have any control over. Could you sort of elaborate what that actually implies? Is it something to do with sort of like StatMap or something like that? Because obviously on the StatMap thing we've got all the trees logged. I'm just wondering where the data actually currently lies, and obviously how easy that is to take off if we can't get it back. And finally, LCC highways are obviously responsible for any trees along roadsides, and they're also responsible for trees that can fall on the road regardless of how far away from the verge they are. Are we in danger of doing logging of trees from SK's viewpoint, as well as LCC then doing a logging of the same trees, depending on their locations? And how do you sort of check there's no overlap? You don't want to get two different contractors checking out the same trees. Thanks.
Would you like to answer that, Councillor Baker?
More than happy to. Fix My Street is a fantastic suggestion. Thank you very much. Well, we will definitely include that in the next draft. The tree surveys at the moment are conducted by North Kesteven District Council. They have quite a few more trees than us. I think Serena mentioned something in the tens of thousands that they're responsible for, rather than the mere 6,000 that are on our systems. At the moment, they conduct our tree surveys on our behalf. We commission that work out to them. And as such, they are keeping that data on their own system that would not follow a migration across to whatever this looks like eventually. So there is that data security question. There is also, we want the history of some of these areas as well. So that is part of this planning, this transition planning. What system will we use to keep logs and keep records? How are we going to transfer across the historical records that currently do not sit within SKDC's remit? We have access to them because there is a contract for that shared access at the moment, but once that ends, it is not guaranteed that we would continue to have access to that. So we need a system in place to deal with that. Absolutely right that Lincolnshire highways are responsible for any trees within a certain distance, I forget what it is, of a highway. And that they are responsible for trees that can fall onto the road. The very vast majority of our trees are not within that limit. I don't think there are any, but I'm happy to be corrected in a moment. Even were we to redo or to survey a tree that perhaps was not our responsibility, and we ended up surveying, we've only got 6,000 trees, maybe 50 of them. If we ended up doing that, and in so doing, identified a problem a little bit earlier that would prevent falling on a tree is going to kill somebody, a tree falling on a road could kill somebody, I am much more comfortable with a small amount of SKDC funds being used in that instance than something worse happening. That is not me writing a blank cheque to say that we're going to do LCC's job for them. They need to do their statutory duties, and I am looking forward to speaking with the new executive member about those statutory duties. We haven't yet been introduced. But I do think that we don't need to use a cannon to go after a mosquito, and if this is such a small number of trees that actually it's in the public good, that it's such a tiny amount and it's not going to impact the applicability of the policy, I don't see an issue with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm actually quite upset that we can't talk about costs. I had a beautiful line here about that money doesn't grow on trees, but I'll have to park that one until next time. Thank you. I'm delighted that we've got sight of this report. Obviously, I did mention at Culture OSC about a tree that fell down, and yeah, I was, I guess, unsurprised that Councillor Baker was already on top of it and already working on a revised, I guess, process for this. My only observation around zoning, I think Councillor kind of Martin highlighted something similar. I guess I'm just, if you just take kind of two of our largest parks in Grantham, obviously Queen Elizabeth and Wyndham Park, you know, I guess I'm kind of looking at that and going from a zoning perspective, is that going to be a 1 or a 2? And I think there's an argument here that obviously a park could have 1s and 2s, depending obviously where the trees are. So is there do we have a one-size-fits-all when it comes to kind of zoning our large parks, or should it be a bit more kind of tailored, you know, to different parts of the park? The areas which are, you know, close to the paths, where there's a lot of footfall, they should be probably, you know, zoned as 1, whereas obviously some parts of the park, you know, the occasional dog walker might walk past them, they might be a 2 or a 3. So I don't know if there is a model here where do we want to go into that granularity of a park having multiple zones, just as an idea. The other thing that I had written down here is does size matter? And this is reference to the size of a tree. Obviously, you know, when you look at any kind of park, there are obviously, you know, small trees, big trees. You know, do we have a same process for a tree that's a metre tall or a, you know, an absolute massive tree? And, you know, what are the risks of obviously a small tree falling are obviously less than a you know, massive tree that's been there for decades. So is there an element here that we actually kind of qualify kind of the size of the tree? What does, you know, when do we start counting that 6,000? At what point do we say that's a tree that we're going to monitor? I guess I'm just curious to know more about trees. So thank you.
Well, Councillor Bailey, I know a man who will. Tree Project Officer Andrew, could you possibly give us an answer to the question?
Yeah, so I'll answer Councillor Bailey's question first, and then I'll go back and discover some of the points that Councillor Martin raised as well. So zoning, yes, there will be multiple zones within parks if it's needed. So, for example, I've already looked at Wyndham Park, and so where you have trees next to highways where there's high occupancy, they will be higher zones than some of the internal areas where there isn't much footfall. What was that? Size. Size does matter, and so, but it's more only because size is linked to age, and age is where you get the structural issues. But it could also be down to things like the way the trees have been managed in the past, or if they've been topped in the past. We know that can cause issues in the future, so that might lead to a whole area being zoned higher than it would otherwise if the trees hadn't been managed in a different way. We could also, well, there's multiple reasons you could zone higher than you might otherwise, you know, for disease characteristics and stuff like that. So, yeah, each area will be looked at individually based on its occupancy, and we can only at the minute do that as a sort of judgment. We're not measuring occupancy, which is how you can take it to the next level if you really want to. But we'll also look at other things like characteristics of the tree population. Councillor Martin, yeah, thanks for that suggestion of adding the Fix My Street link. That's a good idea. I think Councillor Baker covered that question about where the data is held. Just to cover up, provide some clarity on the role and responsibilities of Lincolnshire County Council. They do have powers to deal with trees within a certain distance of the highway, but they only have a duty, so that's the difference, powers to deal with trees and a duty to manage trees. They only have that duty for trees that are within the highway itself. We avoid overlap by only looking at land that we own, so that won't cover, it will go up to the edge of the highway, but it won't cover the highway verge if we're not the owner of that land. So there won't be overlap in that sense. I think that's covered everything.
Thank you very much. Councillor Emma Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one then. So will there be maps that show the boundaries of inspected areas be made available to the public or relevant stakeholders? And yeah, will they have a means to kind of view which trees have or haven't been inspected, so that they can sort of, if they're concerned about a tree, already check rather than doubling down on workload, as it were?
It will be easy enough to make the zoning maps publicly available, less easy to make individual records for trees available. That will be a bit more complex.
If you've checked a zone, can that just be checked in 2025, whatever? Would that be possible, so that if you've got somebody that is concerned about a certain tree and you've already inspected it, they would already know?
Sorry, I'm just thinking through the... so there will be two types of checks. There will be formal checks that happen on a regular basis, and yes, we can make those public. And there will be interim checks that are reactive, so after storm events or when somebody reports that there's something wrong with a tree, and those reactive inspections may not cover the whole zone. They may focus on a particular area, so that would be more difficult. But the formal, regular inspections, there's no reason why we couldn't release that data and make it public, yeah.
Councillor Baker, is this part of that conversation? Yeah, please go ahead then, please.
Thank you. I just want to be clear that this policy is at least in part about risk minimisation and risk management, but it is not risk elimination. We cannot, no matter how often we monitor a tree, prevent them from dying. We cannot stop storms blowing them over, particularly when they're in full leaf in the middle of the summer. So we would encourage, regardless of the last point, that somebody knows or doesn't know that a tree has been inspected. If they are concerned, talk to us, let us know. Get it on to, as Councillor Martin has said, Fix My Street. Give somebody a call. We would much rather be able to nip out and go, no, that's absolutely fine, than to have any risk to life, limb or property.
You can come back on that, Councillor Emma Baker.
I don't disagree with your point. What I'm saying is, how does that resident or other residents know that it's been checked, so that you've not got 10 people chasing the same tree? For instance, if there are 10, 15 people concerned with that tree and it's been checked, then yes, it could just be a simple email. I get that, but could there be something that just says...
Yeah, you can come back to that.
I think that is absolutely very important, and we need to keep officers' time at the forefront of our minds. This is why Councillor Martin's suggestion of Fix My Street is such an outstanding one, because it logs in real time how many reports about a singular issue there are in an area. It also logs the response to that issue, and it logs a dating of there. That doesn't detract from what Andrew was saying earlier about how we can facilitate an understanding of how many trees have been done in an area at a particular time. I'm just adding on top of that.
Councillor Bailey, is this to do
It is, yeah. I was just thinking, I've used StatMap a lot to kind of, some of my areas of my ward obviously get mowed certain times of the year, and obviously within StatMap it tells me kind of the last time an area was mowed, so I assume that we would be able to implement something very similar here to kind of put a certain area, and I know it would be an area, not a specific tree, and say the last time it was inspected was on this date. You know, so I think we already have the technology with StatMap, we just need to plug in some tree stuff and make it accessible.
Thank you. I've just got to go to Councillor Sawyer and then I'll be over to Councillor Ian Selby.
Thank you, Chairman. Three things, very brief. Happy to report that all the trees planted along Sutherland Way in Stanford have survived. Possibly one exception, it was replaced and it's doing well. The beneficial spin-off has been that motorists no longer park on the verges, churning them up. So I thoroughly recommend the idea of trees in verges to fellow councillors if they have areas where that's a problem. Secondly, I wonder if we could put some gentle pressure on LCC to attend to the epicormic growth from lime trees along Ryle Road and Uffington Road in Stamford. Several of them, the growth is hanging over onto the roadway, causing motorists to pull out to go round it. I say it's an LCC matter, but I wonder if we could mention it to them. Thirdly, I wonder if one of our officers could pay a visit to look at St Paul's Churchyard in Stamford, which, being a closed churchyard, I believe comes under SKDC, and there may be some tree work required in there. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Selby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think we all pretty much know the value of trees in our community. We know the benefits to the environment, to the wildlife, and hence why we've now got a tree officer. I'm thrilled to bits that Andrew's with us. So, you know, we all value trees. My concern is in relation to page 5, with regarding tree roots damage and also TPOs. It does say in here, can I cut tree roots that extend onto my property? And the answer is yes, if the tree is not protected. And then it goes on. But it doesn't say if the tree has a TPO. And I think there should be something in here with regarding tree roots damage and TPOs. And I don't actually agree with Reece when Reece suggests that in this tree policy we shouldn't refer to planning policy. I think we should. And the reason for saying that is when it comes to planning applications that clearly impact upon trees, and especially where there's a TPO tree involved, and especially when it comes to our own council putting in applications that impact upon trees with a TPO. There's one currently ongoing in the Harrowby ward at this moment. Some beautiful trees, and where they're wanting to put the housing, it clearly impacts upon the tree roots of a TPO. That's not something our council should be doing, you know. So I think we should include something in relation to planning policy, and we should at least raise the awareness of the impact upon fabulous trees that's got a TPO on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Baker, did you want to come back to that, or?
I think we're aggressively agreeing with each other, but at cross purposes. I agree we should have policies that protect trees in the planning process. I agree that we should have a one-stop shop for planning-related issues that includes trees. I agree that there should be a cohesive and coherent approach to planning that incorporates our trees, because particularly in Grantham and Stamford, given their historic nature, some of these are ancient trees by Elsie Park standards. The comment was simply that this is a tree management strategy and the policies that are around tree management, and by their nature, where a tree is destroyed, removed or otherwise interfered with as part of a development, that is still the council's responsibility, but isn't part of the 6,000 tree that we would manage on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. That must be raised with the planning team. TPOs are not optional for developers to ignore at their whims. They need to be held accountable where trees are taken out, and even where trees don't have a TPO but they're taken out needlessly. Frankly, I think that needs addressing, and the planning committee and the planning department and planning policy is where we can change that. This specific strategy cannot encompass TPOs removed in the development process, because the ripples that would come out from this would make this policy so unwieldy and so difficult to use, and it would become another planning document. The idea for this is to make it easier for residents to get answers about trees that are growing, that have overgrown, that are in the highways, as you've mentioned, that are perhaps looking a little bit top-heavy, that might need coppicing or pollarding, that seem to be on their way out because they're blowing over. It's things like that. It's telling our tenanted properties, where do your responsibilities end and our responsibilities start. I am absolutely happy to work with the planning team to firm up and improve our protection of trees in the development process, and we are making excellent strides to getting a planning specific tree officer in place in the very near future. That would give us 2 tree officers. One is like hen's teeth. I don't know how you escalate the analogy from there. But if this document is to remain true to its purpose, and if this document is to still be useful for our residents, we do need to draw the line at some point, and at the moment that line is drawn at planning issues.
Would you like to come back to that, Councillor Selby?
Yeah, basically, I think the point I'm making is that we've got one department in the council that's making great strides, doing fabulous work on trying to, improve the environment and trees and the benefits and everything. And we've got another department that comes along and just seems to drive roughshod straight through it. And then there needs to be some communication between the departments to make sure that this doesn't happen. And I think that's maybe the point of making. Trying to make it diplomatically as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Baker? Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following on from Councillor Sawyer's about Sutherland Way, but I would like to very much ask your help, and probably the tree office's help. In Green Lane in Stamford, last year there was a tree removed in that, and it's in between, just outside our what called sheltered accommodations. It's between the pavements and the road. There was a tree that was removed. I wonder if that could be replaced, if we can plant another one. And there was one a bit further down, about 2 years ago it was removed, but I would just wonder if that also can be replaced, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Andrew, do you want to reply back to that?
Sounds like from the description that is part of the highway, so that will be down to Lincolnshire County Council to replace.
Will it?
Please go ahead, Arish.
Will it be possible for you to get in touch with Lincolnshire County Council if they have removed it, if it can be replaced, please?
Happy to ask the question. Yeah.
Councillor Baker.
As we've spoken about earlier, Fix My Street is an excellent place to log all of these issues, and I am very sympathetic and usually go on and on and on and on, as you all know, about things close to my heart, like conservation, like trees. I'm just anxious that the feedback and the comments on this policy are so important at this stage, because I've brought this to this committee to make this policy as good as it can possibly be at a point where you can have meaningful impact on it, not leaving it until it's essentially being approved. So I'm happy if you send me all of your tree problems, email me, put them through. I can take them up and I can advocate on your behalf, but I would really like us to really analyse what is in front of us here on the policy and provide feedback on the policy, please. We've had some fantastic suggestions already, and I'd love to be able to translate your suggestions into meaningful changes and meaningful additions so that you are proud of the policy that we will put out at the end of this year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's just noted.
Okay, well, that's all noted then. Are we all happy with that, yeah? Okay. Ooh. Right, okay, item 12. Now time to review the work programme on page 83. There was 3 X's on here and I thought someone was offering me a kiss, but I've realised it's actually the page number I need to be looking for. Please note that the new process needs to be followed by adding matters to the work programme. Now please bear with me as I'm new to this, so I hope to get it right. So I understand now we're going to the work programme for the next agenda for our next meeting in September, and I have to add the meeting in September is no longer the 15th of September. I believe that's now been moved to the 23rd of September. I'd like to also remind all committee members just to check their calendars, because there are a few meetings that have been moved over the next couple of months, courtesy of my Vice Chair here, Councillor Baker. She needs to change a few dates, so we've accommodated that. So any issues with that, please speak to the Vice Chair. Thank you, Emma. Right, okay, so looking at September, we're looking at the carbon dashboard, food waste and air quality. Okay?
Potentially.
Potentially. Sorry, go on.
Paul would like to come in.
Please go ahead, Paul.
It's just a quick note that at the end of the last committee meeting we had agreed to add a flooding working group to the work programme. So it's just something you need to consider.
Thank you very much, Paul. That is going to be considered and noted for you. Thank you. So then looking at to November, yeah? To November is the biodiversity, the climate action, Green Fleet and the tree policy. Obviously that should have been done in for September, but that has now been moved to November due to a large amount of work that needs to be done on that, and that will be now in November. So, yeah. Okay. As from anything?
Yeah,
please go ahead.
Apologies, obviously I'm new to the committee. It's probably going to come, but can I ask that we get feedback from what you spoke about today, how it's going, the change of dates for the bin, because if it's September, that'll be quite a good time if we've got room to, or move it to the next committee date. Is that okay?
Yeah, you may.
Thank you, Chair. It will be very early on. I believe it's a week in September, and I think, Councillor Trotter, you've given me an opportunity to speak when I turned that down in the past. I'd be more than happy to give an update at that point, absolutely. And I do think that you need regular updates that, provided that the agenda isn't too big, I would be putting them in as a matter of course with the Chair and Vice Chair's permission, but excellent to go on the record, thank you.
Councillor Baker.
Councillor Trotter, just to say, yeah, we'll potentially, November is looking incredibly busy already, but we can certainly look to put it as a feedback, just as a, if Kay's okay with that, just an initial, this is the feedback. Obviously she's not here, so I'm not going to speak for her, but I would like the same sort of thing. So if we could have, it won't be anything to discuss, but it will be a feedback for the initial thing. Is that okay?
And also, just to add for November, which has been noted to me, I forgot to mention about the KPIs for Q2. They'll be also in that November's agenda as well. Is there any more that anybody wishes to say, either from the officers or from committee, regarding the next couple of agendas? No, shall we move on? Fantastic. I'm not aware of any urgent business for this next item on the agenda, so if there is no further business, then I'm pleased to say at 16:15, I'm happy to say the meeting is now closed, and thank you very much to all councillors and officers and councillors on the back benches as well for your communication with us today. Thank you.